Okay, you want nuts? I got nuts for you. New Year's Eve at Disney World. That's nuts. So in the 5 years that I worked at Disney World for photopass, I had the pleasure of working New Year's Eve 4 different times. Twice at Magic Kingdom, once at Hollywood Studios, and once at Epcot. Every year, it was absolutely nuts. But it was also a lot of fun. What a lot of people don't realize is that New Year's Eve is actually the single busiest day of the year for Disney World. Every park reaches capacity. See, Disney has something on very busy days that they call a soft close and a hard close. A soft close means those parks are getting pretty full, and so they're going to stop letting regular guests in, but they will still allow people who are staying at the Disney resorts in. And then you get a hard close. That means it's full, there's no more room, nobody else gets in. On New Year's Eve, 2 of the 4 parks would hit a hard close, and the others would come pretty close. Magic Kingdom, they would actually close the gates typically somewhere between 10 and 11 and not allow anybody else in. It was just too many people in the park. Hollywood Studios would follow up pretty quickly, somewhere between 11 and 12 most of the time. And then Epcot would be the next one. Epcot would be where they would send everybody who couldn't make it into Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios because it was the biggest park land-wise. It could hold the most people. And they would put a lot of people there. The one New Year's Eve I worked at Epcot, they had over 100,000 people in one park. I think the actual number was somewhere around 106, 108,000, something like that. That's the size of a small city. And in one theme park, there were people everywhere. They were filling the planters. Every little patch of grass had people sitting on it because there was no place else for them to go. The lines for everything were humongous. And a lot of people just found a place to camp for the day and then occasionally go out and do something. That's almost the norm at all 3 of the parks. I remember when I worked at Magic Kingdom, there were people that had actually found their place for the day starting at about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. They'd marked off their little territory around the Castle Square or on Main Street, and that's where they were staying all the way till midnight when the fireworks went. They weren't going to move and lose their spot. And then as the day went on, people would start filling in and packing in those places. The parades, biggest crowd you've ever seen. If you hadn't had your spot a couple hours early, you weren't going to get to see the parade anywhere near the castle. You could in some of the other places like Frontierland, but the Castle Square, forget it. Main Street wasn't going to happen. And they'd be there all day. The Castle Square, what we called the hub, Main Street, and even up by the train station would all start packing in and filling in throughout the course of the early evening. So much so that the photographers that were on Main Street, we got pulled off about 6, 7 o'clock, something like that, because it got so crowded that we couldn't fit on the street. And it started to become dangerous for it to be out there trying to maneuver and take pictures. When the crowds are so thick that you can't move and you don't have space, they'd have to pull us off. And we would shoot as long as we could, up till I had about 4 or 5 feet in front of me. And once the crowds had gotten so thick that I didn't have that kind of space to be able to safely move, they said, okay, forget it. We're not going to get pictures anyways, and there's no reason to risk somebody getting hurt just so you can get a picture. Get out of there and go sell them. So once the crowds got that thick, they'd pull us off of the street, and we'd head up to the Grand Expo where we would actually show and sell the photos. Once evening hit and people were out on the street, nobody was buying pictures. Nobody was looking at pictures, which meant we kind of stood around for a little while, not doing a whole lot. Then we stepped outside once the fireworks started. We just got paid to watch fireworks. Hey, that was really cool because we basically got to celebrate with all the other guests and goof off. We just had to make sure we stayed pretty near to where we worked. And that was a lot of fun. Had a great time doing that. And so Magic Kingdom, we shot on the street as long as we could. They pulled us in. We partied. That was pretty much my experience shooting on Main Street at Magic Kingdom. The other time I worked at Magic Kingdom, I was actually over at Toontown. We didn't have to worry about the crowd so much there because we were in separate rooms with the characters, and we would shoot as long as we had guests come in. But what we noticed is come about 11 o'clock or so, all the guests quit coming. And we were still open. We stayed open till 1 or 2 in the morning that day, if I remember right. But we didn't have anybody come and see the characters. There was nobody there. So again, we kind of played around. We goofed off in the rooms a little bit. Occasionally, guests would come in, and then we'd all be jumping for joy. There's somebody Woo! Somebody's here! Yay! And we have a great time. They get the best character experience they ever got. But 11:30, there wasn't anybody else coming. And we knew it. They actually closed Toontown for a little bit, since nobody was there anyways. And we snuck out to the back doors and we stood by the back tents. We watched the fireworks from there and celebrated. Had a great time. One of the best things about Disney is when you get paid to watch the fireworks. That's just such an awesome deal. And to be there with your friends and co-workers, it was an absolute blast. Epcot was probably the hardest one to work, just because there were so many people. With Epcot, there's not as many fun things for family to do, so you had an older crowd. Out in World Showcase, you had a lot of people drinking. By about 10 o'clock, there were a lot of people that were not in good shape because of how much they'd been drinking. And it became very unpleasant to have to deal with some of them, just because of the attitudes that were only there because they'd had too much to drink. Thankfully, that was the smaller percentage of the guests. Most of them were there to have a good time. A lot of people were just there and camped out all day in whatever patch of ground they could find, because every patch of ground was full. The line over at Character Spot was just huge all day. When we were there, we were just shooting like crazy. It's as many as we could get. Finally, about 11:30, it slowed down, and we were standing around Character Spot waiting. Now, we knew Illuminations was going on. You can hear Illuminations inside the Character Spot, but you can't see it because you're on the wrong side of the building. But you can hear the explosions, and about 11:45, it got nice and quiet. And then everybody's just kind of waiting, and we kind of gathered together, the characters and the photographers and the attendants, and we just kind of waited and waited. And then about midnight or so, all of a sudden you hear this big boom as the Illuminations exploded. And we all knew that, hey, we'd hit midnight, we celebrated real quick, and then we went right back to our work spots, because here came the people again. And we kept busy for about another hour or so, then finally people got worn out and headed home. But the most fun New Year's was over at Hollywood Studios. I was actually out on Hollywood Boulevard, which is the main street that people come in on. Well, up under the Hat, which is by the Chinese Theater, that's kind of the center point of the park there, they had a big stage, and they alternated between two different groups that were up on stage. They had the local park band, Mulch, Sweat, and Shears, playing, and they're a great rock band. But then they also brought in this DJ. So you'd have Mulch, Sweat, and Shears on for about 20-30 minutes, a few minutes break, and then this DJ would come out, and he would be out there for 20-30 minutes. The DJ they got was awesome. I wish I knew his name. But he played this great mix of just fun music. At one point, he got out in front and he had these giant Mickey hands. And when I say giant, I mean they were like 3 feet across. And he's leading everybody, clapping with the songs. They're out there doing the Cupid Shuffle, the electric slide, the chicken dance, and all sorts of other stuff. And people walking by would just spontaneously stop, hear the music, and start dancing with it. The photographers, if we didn't have anybody that we were shooting, we kind of hold the tripod, again, to make sure it didn't get knocked over by the crowds. And we'd be out there dancing along with them, too. One of the fun things I like to do with the groups is they would see us out there and they'd decide they want a picture. I would get them dancing with whatever the DJ was playing. And as they're doing the steps, usually together, because he did a lot of the line dances, I would then tell them, at some point in the middle of it, freeze! And they would stop in whatever pose that they were in with the dance. And you'd have this group that everybody's kind of doing the same thing, pose the same way, and then you take the picture, make them hold it for a few seconds, and you got this great picture of them dancing, having a great time at Hollywood Studios for New Year's. It possibly was the most fun night I had at any of my nights working. The music, the dancing, the party atmosphere. People didn't drink as much at Hollywood Studios. Just a blast. Finally, it did get so crowded, though, that we couldn't shoot anymore and they have to pull us off. And then we went up to Cover Story, dropped off our equipment where it's safe. Nobody's coming into the store. And so, again, we stepped out onto the sidewalk outside the store and just watched the fireworks and celebrated with everybody. Made up for not being able to be with my family that night. But it was a great moment to experience New Year's Eve at Disney with so many thousands of other people that were there to have a great time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you had a great time remembering some of my New Year's Eve stories. If you did, hit that like button below. Be sure to leave me your comments. Let me know what you've done for New Year's Eve and what other experiences you've had at Disney. I would so appreciate it too if you're enjoying my videos. Hit that subscribe button right there. Keep caught up on everything that's coming out. If you want to check out another video of mine, there's one right there for you. It'll be perfect. I would love your support. Help me get new gear. Help me to produce more videos, better videos. Check out my Patreon right there. Thank you to all my supporters too. Have a wonderful holiday season and a very happy new year.